Hey, hi guys. Yeah, welcome to the webinar on SQL. All right. So to give a brief about myself, I'm Sai Kumar. So I'm currently working as a senior data scientist at one of the consulting firms. So I come with overall of close to 7 years of work experience, fully into data analytics. I've previously worked with firms like Mu Sigma and Citibank. So I have good experience working with SQL. Like throughout my whole 7 years of journey, I'm some way associated with writing SQL queries for my various projects. Okay, and I have been associated with Intellipaat also for quite some time, where I'm mentoring people on SQL and data science technologies. Cool. So that's about my quick intro. So yeah, guys, so let's get started. So SQL is basically a query language, and it stands for structured query language. Okay. So unlike other programming languages like Java or C++, SQL is not a language to build any applications or any kind of websites. No, this is not a language, programming language for doing such kind of things. It's not. So SQL is a language of databases, I would say. Okay. So in simple terms, if you ask me what an SQL is a coding language, and it acts like a what do you say communication um, between databases and the users. Okay. So to communicate with the databases, one need to write some piece of code. Okay. So that piece of code that you write is nothing but SQL. Okay, cool. So yeah, so in this webinar, let's understand what SQL as a language is, what is its role, um, and what are the jobs that are based on SQL. We'll try to cover that. And what are the various concepts that you would need to know if you are someone planning to make a career towards the data side, right? When I say data side, it could be as a data scientist or a data analyst or a business intelligence engineer. So any roles which are based on the data analytics side. So what are the concepts of SQL that you would need to be aware of? We will see all those things, and maybe I can give you a small flavor of how an SQL code looks like with some basic queries. We shall try to understand that. Okay. All right, guys. So as I just told, SQL is nothing but it's a programming language to communicate with the databases. Okay. Okay. So even before understanding SQL, what we need to understand is from the very basics, we need to understand what a database is. Okay. And even before we understand what a database is, so data is nothing but it's a collection of facts and figures, I would say. Okay. So when you have some collection of facts and figures, then you can call it as data. Like for example, if I have state-wise population statistics with me. Okay, let's say I have done some survey and I have found out what is the state-wise population. Okay, so that becomes my data, right? Because like let's say I have, okay, for Telangana state population is, okay, let's say 5 crores. Okay, and for Maharashtra state, my population is, let's say, 7 crores. For UP, population is 10 crores. Something like this. I have some facts and figures with me. So this forms data, right? And if I ask you, uh, is data and information one and the same, or are they different? So what happens is whenever you get the data, so data could be in an unstructured format, right? It sometimes is in a format not easy to consume. Like for example, in this particular row, I have some facts and figures with me. I have some facts which says about the state-wise population, right? But if you look at that format of the data, it is not consumable, right? And if someone looks at it, they might not even know it in the first place, what we are talking about. I'm saying TS and 5 crores. Okay. So TS is Telangana state. It's a state in India. Maharashtra is a state in India. UP is also a state in India, for those of you who don't know what are the short forms that I am using. Okay, so those are the short forms for the states, that are various states that are present within India. Okay, so yeah, if you look at this data, it is not ready to be consumed, or it's not in a meaningful manner, right? So if I further process the data, okay, if the data is processed, cleaned, and put it in a format so that the data gets some meaning, right? That data becomes information. Okay, the meaningful data becomes information. Okay, so the difference between data and information is when data is processed and put it in a format that it is easy to consume and it has some meaning, then it becomes information. Okay, so how can I convert this data into information is I can put it in a tabular format like this, and I can write it here as the state, and here I can write it as the population in crores. Okay, for those of you who don't know what is a crore is nothing but 1 million, sorry, 10 million. But let me put it in population in millions itself. So let me put it in terms of millions itself. So okay, so for the state of Telangana has the population of 5 crores. 5 crores is nothing but 50 million. Similarly, state of Maharashtra, population of 7 crore, which is 70 million. Similarly, Uttar Pradesh has population of about 10 crore, which is 100 million, right? So if you see, there is a difference between this data and this information. If you see, I have processed this data and put it in a tabular format, mentioning the column name, and for each of this quantity, I mentioned the header, what that value corresponds to, right? So this data has got more meaningful meaning than putting it in this format, right? So this is nothing but information, right? So when a data is processed, it becomes information. So there is a slight difference between data and information in terms of data terminologies. Okay, in data analytics terminologies, in data and information are not one and the same. But if you ask a normal common man, he would say data or information, they are all one and the same. They are the synonyms, right? Okay, for a normal man, it is same, but for an IT professional, or for a professional who knows about data analytics, data and information are not one and the same. Okay, so this is about data and this is information. Now, what is a database then? We're talking about data, then what is a database? Okay, so let's try to understand what a database is. So a database is nothing but organized collection of data stored in an electronic format. Okay, when you have so much of data, it has to be stored somewhere, right? So that you can later retrieve it, right? So when you collect the data and store it in an electronic format, and you have to store it at certain location, right? So that location is called a database, right? So you would be making use of server and storage equipment to store your data, right? So that storage of data is called database. Okay. So Lalit is asking in what format data is stored, right? So it depends, right? Data can be stored in different formats, right? I mean, the data that we are storing, it could be any data. It could be a textual data. It could be image data. It could be a speech or audio files data, right? So it could be anything, right? So it depends on the type of data that you are storing on a database. Databases are different types of databases are present, which we will be seeing shortly. So, but what you need to understand is any format of data could be stored, right? It could be a image, it could be a video, it could be an audio file, or it could be a normal text data, right? So many different formats of data is there, and it is stored. The data is stored on the database in a raw format. We further need to process it. Okay. Sometimes if you are a data scientist or a data analyst, it is your responsibility to clean the data. Okay. When I say raw, it is not fully raw. It is like a semi-processed data, I would say. Okay. So it is because the term database itself says you need to have an organized collection of data. It's not like you randomly storing the data, however it is getting generated, you're just storing it randomly. No, it is stored in an organized manner. Like if it is a sales data, you are creating some sales table on the database and creating different tables related to the sales. Okay. Like that, you are in an organized format. If you are storing some data, that location or that place where you are storing the data is nothing but a database. Okay. So today, databases not only give us the option of retrieving the data back, but you can also do all these different operations with respect to the databases. Okay. So once you store the data on your database, you will be able to access the data as and when you want it. Okay. And you can not only access this, you can also manipulate the data, right? What if, let's say, today you're storing some data about the address of the customers. Okay. So you're storing the address of the customers. Like, let's say, let's take an example of Amazon, right? So people go to Amazon website, place the orders, right? So you become an Amazon customer. Okay. So when you're first signing up for an Amazon website or any e-commerce website for that matter, they will ask certain credentials about you, right? Like your name, your mobile number, email ID, your gender, date of birth, your place of residence, and stuff like that, right? So what Amazon or any e-commerce site does in the backend is they store all that data that is getting collected from you, right? So they will be storing that data in their customer database, right? And let's say after some days you have moved your you have changed your location, right? So let's say you are previously residing in Chicago and now you have moved to Texas, right? So then you need to, then what will you do? You will go to Amazon website and you will update your current address from Chicago to Texas, right? So whenever you do this change, even in the backend databases, the data should get updated, right? So the database should offer that flexibility for us to update that information, right? So that is what I mean by manipulating the data and updating the data, right? By manipulation, I also mean, let's say today I am not collecting information about the marital status of the customer. Tomorrow, for some reason, for some analysis, I need the marital status of the customers visiting the Amazon website, right? So I need to be able to add a new column into my data and store that marital status info of the customers, right? So I should be able to make that manipulation to include a new column in my data, right? So today's databases offer all these features, right? Today's databases come with all these features where you can store the data and retrieve it whenever you want, and you can update it as and when you want it, and you can also manipulate the data that is present on the database. Okay. So now let's try to understand what a DBMS is. Okay. So once you understood what is data, what is database, there is something called as database management system. Okay. So to simply put it, it's nothing but it's a software. Okay. It's a software that you can install on your PCs or laptops, through which you will be able to manage the databases. Okay. So I'm saying that there are databases, they are lying on some server storage infrastructure. But how will you be able to access that database or data present on that server? There should be some interface between you and the database, right? So that interface is nothing but it's a software that you can install on your PCs, through which you will be able to connect to that databases or the data that is present on the databases. Okay. So for example, if you see this icon here, so this icon is nothing but it's an icon for SQL Server Management Studio. Okay. Or shortly called as SSMS. Okay. So the SQL Server Management Studio is a software developed by Microsoft. Okay. So in which through which you will be able to connect to the databases. Okay. So this SQL Server Management Studio software is called a DBMS software. Okay. And DBMS is nothing but database management system. Okay. So SQL Server Management Studio is an example of a DBMS. Okay, because the definition of DBMS is nothing but it's a system software that can be used to connect to the databases, and we can manage those databases using that software. Okay. Yeah, guys. So this and all is not very important. Now let's try to understand in this schema of databases, where does SQL fit in, right? So we learned about data, we learned about databases. We also have seen what a database management system is. Now, in this schema of all these things, where is SQL fitting then? Okay. So SQL is nothing but it's a structured query language. It's a coding language that can be used for accessing and manipulating databases. Okay. So you have a database, you can connect it to the database using database management systems. But ultimately, how will you communicate to the database? There should be some language that we need to um, make use of to communicate with the database, right? So that language is nothing but SQL, or structured query language. Okay. So it is like, imagine like there are two persons, and two persons need to come. Two persons are located at two different locations. Okay. So if they have to communicate, there is a mobile phone. Okay. So the mobile phone is nothing but SQL Server Management Studio. Okay. So I have just trying to open the SQL Server Management Studio. So when I just connect to my server, so I'm connecting to this server. Okay, I'll show you. Okay, so this is nothing but the SQL Server Management Studio, guys. So it is, as I told, it is a tool or a software developed by Microsoft. It is a database management system. Okay, so it is a database management system. Okay, so right, yeah. So now let's try to understand where is SQL fitting in through some analogy. Okay, so take that example. When there are two persons, when they are located at two different locations, right? So if they want to communicate to each other, what they would do, they'll just call each other, right, through mobile phone, right? So the mobile phone is like a physical, what do you say, a physical entity that is letting those two people connect, right? Even if the mobile phone is there, if the two people are not talking, then they won't be able to communicate, right? So there has to be some medium of communication, right? There has to be some language, so that those two people can communicate, right? It can be any language, right? So if you just try to draw parallels with that scenario, here, there are databases and there are users, right? Users are nothing but you and me, people like you and me, and databases are the infrastructure where our data is getting stored, right? Now you have SQL Server Management Studio in between, which is acting like a mobile phone, right? Now the persons need to talk. For the person to be able to communicate to each other, they need to talk some language. Only then they will be able to communicate or exchange the words, right? In a similar fashion, we need to have some language, right? A common universally accepted language through which we shall be able to communicate with the databases, right? So that language is nothing but SQL. Okay, so SQL is a universally adopted structured query language that is used to communicate with the databases. Okay, yeah, guys. So that is about what an SQL is. So you see here, this is a SQL code. It helps us to connect to the databases and communicate with it. Okay, so basically SQL language consists of various commands. Okay, so it consists of various commands that will uh, help us to do various sorts of operations, right? For example, we have the select clause, which helps us to retrieve the data from the database. Okay, so here, since this is just an intro kind of session, I'm not going into very depth of how to create the table, what a table is, and stuff like that. Okay, but I'll just give quick demo. Like what happens is in database management systems, data is stored in the form of tables. Okay, I have been telling data, right? So how the data is getting stored, data gets stored in a tabular format, right? For example, if you take an employee table, okay, right? Every organization maintains the records of its employees, right? Whenever any new person joins the organization collects some information from that person, right? And every person would be allotted some employee ID. They would be having some name, some salary, the age, gender, department, and so many other details would be collected from that person, and that info would be stored in the backend databases of that organization, right? So for instance, let's assume that okay, there is some company which is storing these attributes of the employee. Okay, they are only storing the employee ID, name, the salary that has been agreed to, and what is the age of the customer, what is the gender of the customer, and the department in which he would be working, right? So if this data is collected from the employee, and they would be storing this data in the backend database, right? And how this data would be stored is, this data would be stored in the form of table like this. Okay, so let me show you one employee table which I have already created. Okay, so let me show you how I can access that table. Okay, so these are nothing but databases. Okay, so IntelliDB, learners, Madura, October. So these are the different databases which I have created. Okay, so these databases are called user created databases. Okay, so I have created these databases using the SQL coding language. Okay, so to create a database, it is very simple. You just need to write create database followed by the database name. Okay, let's say if I want to create a database name as November. Okay, I'm creating one database, and I want to name the database as November. Okay, so as simple as that. This one command, create database followed by the database name. If I write this command and click on this execute, my code gets executed, and it gets compiled, and it gets executed. Once the code is executed successfully, I get a message saying that command completed successfully, right? So then what will happen is, on the what do you say, on the server, a database named November will be created. Okay, but I should be able to see this newly created database over here, right? So for that, what I'll do is I'll just refresh the contents of this object explorer. Okay, I keep clicking on it multiple times, and when I open the databases folder again, I'll be able to see the newly created database named November. You got it? So in this way, I can simply create a database. Whatever databases I want to create, I can create them. And if I want to drop them, I just write drop database followed by database name. Okay, and just execute it. It will drop the database for you. Okay, but still it is visible because you haven't yet refreshed the contents. So close this databases folder, refresh it multiple times, click on it, keep on clicking on it. And then once you open the databases folder, you wouldn't be able to see that database. Okay, so by drop, I mean it's like you are deleting it. Okay, so you are dropping the database means from the server you are just dropping it, right? You are dropping an item means what? You're slipping that item out of your hands, right? In the same manner, you're dropping the database from the server. You're eliminating it. Okay, so drop database November means you're eliminating or deleting that database from the server. Okay, yeah guys, so once I create a database, what I can do is I can also create a table. I can create as many tables as I want in that database. Okay, okay, So again, I created the table. Okay. And in the interest of time, I wouldn't be typing the code. I'll just open one of the already existing files where I have created some tables. I'll just copy paste that code and I'll show you. Okay. Yeah, guys. So basically, if you want to create the table from the scratch, so we can write this query. We need to know this syntax. Okay. So here, what are we doing? We are creating the table named employee and we are infusing these columns into that table. Okay. So these are the different columns: employee ID, name, gender, date of birth, salary, department. And you can keep on including whatever columns that you would like to store in your table. Okay. So, and beside each of the column names, you see there is something called as integer, varchar, date. So these are nothing but the data types of that column. Okay. So the data types are nothing but you should let SQL Server know that what kind of values will go into these columns. Okay. And one more thing, guys, I forgot to tell you. So when I told you that the data gets stored in the form of tables on the databases, so tables have something called as records. Okay. So these horizontal entities or horizontal rows that you see on the screen, they are nothing but rows or records, right? Okay. So what I'm saying is every table consists of rows and columns. Okay. These horizontal entities are called rows and the vertical entities are called columns. Columns are also called as fields. Columns or fields, one and the same. Rows or records, one and the same. So basically table comprise of rows and columns, or table comprise of records and fields. Okay. So here I'm creating so many different columns within this table, and I'm also assigning the available data types. Okay. You need to assign a relevant data type. When I say employee ID as integer, it means into this employee ID column, only integer type values will go and sit in that column, right? So employee name varchar means it could be any name, right? So employee date of birth is a date type of data. So you need to declare that column with date data type. Like that, I can writing all the columns and I'm specifying the relevant data type of that column. Okay. So when I execute this, okay, no, I need to first choose November here so that I can create this employee table within the November database. Okay. So you can make this November as an active database by selecting the November database from this drop down. Okay. So this drop down shows you all the list of all the available databases. Okay. From which you can select whatever is a database in which um, you want to store this table. Okay. I want to store this table in the November database. Hence, I'm making November database as my active database. Okay. Uh, yeah, yeah, guys. So I'm planning to create this table in the November database. So I made November as my active database. After making November as my active database, select the code that you want to execute and click on execute. Okay. So command completed successfully, which means employee table now got created in the November database. Okay. So go to the November database, go to the tables, and you should be able to see the employee table. Okay. So here there is a DBO before employee. Employee is a table name and DBO is nothing but database object. Okay. Okay. So DBO stands for database object. Okay. So in that way, I created the data, right? So once the data is created, if I write a query to see I created the table. If I want to access the data present in the table, I need to write a query. Okay. This query is nothing but SQL query I need to write. So select star from employee. If I do, I'll be able to access the data that is present in the table. Okay. But if you see, there is no data in that table because when we created the table, it just creates the skeleton of the table on the database. We haven't yet inserted any data into it, right? So to insert the data into the table, you need to make use of insert into command. Okay. So using this insert into command, and you need to pass the values one by one for each of the columns. Okay, so once again, I'm just copy pasting the code from the already existing code. So what I'm doing here is, if you see, for each and every column, I am passing the values. For example, for employee ID is 1, employee name is Sai Kumar, my name, gender is male, my date of birth, some random date of birth, my salary, and the department that I belong to. Okay, so when you run this one statement, one row of data gets inserted into that table. Okay, so to similarly, if you want to populate that table with multiple rows, keep on running this insert into statement multiple times, which will insert multiple rows of data into your table. Okay, so once after running this query, if you once again do select star from employee, it would give you all the records of data that got inserted into the employee table. Okay, so this is how you can create the table on the database using the create table command. Okay, and once the table is created on the database, you can insert or pass the data into that table, right? And go, as you asked, if I want to delete any of the records from this table, if I want to delete any of the rows from the table, you just need to write like this: delete. Okay, so delete from employee, and then you need to specify the where condition. Okay, so I want to delete from employee where employee ID is equals to 2. Okay, for example, this employee with employee ID 2 has resigned from the organization, so his data has to be eliminated or deleted from the employee database, right? So how to delete the record from the table? Very simple: delete from employee. Okay, so delete from whatever table from which you want to delete the record, specify that, and using the where condition, specify which particular record you would like to delete. Okay, here I would like to delete the record where employee ID is equals to 2. Okay, so delete from employee where employee ID is equals to 2. If I just do this, you see one row got affected, which means one row got deleted from the employee table. When I again run this select star from employee table, I wouldn't be able to see the record with employee ID 2 because it has been deleted. Okay, so in this way, I can insert the data and I can delete at whatever time I want, I can delete it. Okay, what these 106, all those indicate. So that is the maximum size. Okay, when I say employee name varchar 100, I'm putting a constraint. Employee name cannot exceed 100 characters. So the maximum length of the name that my employee name column can accept is 100 characters. Okay, so this name like this is there, right? This name cannot exceed 100 characters. That's what I'm saying. Employee gender maximum length is 6, means either male or female. This string cannot exceed 6. What do you say? 6 characters, like that. Okay. Yeah, guys. So in this way, you can create the tables and play around with it. Once all these commands that are there, right? So those are nothing but SQL commands. Okay. So once you go more in depth into the topic, you need to learn all these commands for doing various sorts of manipulations with the data. Yeah, guys. So I'll just conclude the session. I hope you at least understood some basics of SQL. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sai Kumar. This is Rahul Sharma, and I'm one of the career counselors and training advisors at Intellipaat. I will take the session forward from here. So, guys, thank you so much, first of all, for joining the session today. I hope you guys got to know what is a relational database, how industry is storing data. Now, obviously, this data is something that you control, as you saw in this demonstration today. The data, the tables that are created, those are created by you only, or the people who are working in the company. The data which is then again uploaded, that also is done by the database developer only. So in this situation, you have a lot of control over the data. The quality of data is should be very good since you are doing it, and it helps in generating very good insights as well. So business intelligence is also something that leads. So once you are having good knowledge and control of storage of data, and maintaining the database properly, the next step is to go ahead and analyze it. Definitely help you with the course price for SQL. If you head over to our website right now and just search for SQL over there, you will see the first program is there, the Microsoft SQL certification program. This particular program, this is a close to, you will require 1 month and 2 weeks to attend the complete training. It's a live instructor led training. So my faculty was here today, Mr. Sai Kumar. Now, how these classes are conducted, you got a brief idea of how the sessions are going to be. Obviously, in the live classes, we'll be having much more hands-on. Today was just a introduction. So basic queries, how to create a table, how to add data to the table, delete data from the table. These basic things were discussed. Going forward, like one of the questions people ask, like, what if you want to insert large amount of data? So this is also can be done. It can be also done using select star queries that are there, and these things are also taught in the classes. So if you have a data already in a separate location, maybe in an Excel sheet, and you want to load it onto the database, so there are ways, there are queries which you can use and implement, through which you can do this transfer. So obviously these things are going to be taught in the classes, so that you can have a fair understanding of where it is implemented, why there is a need to learn these queries first of all, and what is the implementation side of things as well. If you are looking for to learn only SQL and the development part of SQL, then the choices that you have is the live classes. Now upcoming classes are obviously there this coming weekend also. We have started this last weekend, sorry, pardon me, we have started a batch on 22nd. Yesterday morning also we started a new batch, and this coming weekend also we will be having another batch that will start. So there are multiple options that you have in terms of the classes that you can select. And the course price on the website, as you can see, 15,000 is the course fee for only the SQL program. So in the live sessions also you will be having this two-way interactions, and we also expect that in the live sessions you go ahead, and if you have any doubts you can get it resolved. We also provide support. The support that we provide is also provided in a similar fashion. So we go ahead and schedule a one-on-one session for our student. My the support team, the technical assistance team which is working with Intellipaat, they are available, so that if in case you are having any doubts in that one-to-one session itself, your queries, your doubts can be resolved. Taking you back to this SQL program. Correct, correct. So see, there are a couple of things here. When you register for our program, first you get access is the recorded videos, in which you get the complete course plan available with you as soon as you complete your registration. And this is something that we update also. So if any version change happens, that is provided to you. So the learning path, what will be taught to you, this you would be already having access in your Intellipaat account. If you go and log in and check, it should already be there, and you can go through module wise the videos also and the assignments. And obviously we conduct live classes as well. And the live classes, what we do is, as soon as the class is conducted, within 12 hours we upload the recording as well, so that you can go through the recording after the class has been conducted. And that also is module wise uploaded in the LMS itself. Like, in case if you want to check out some of the other programs that Intellipaat provides, actually in this session I was just going to introduce the different partnerships that Intellipaat has done with different universities around the globe. So if you're interested to know more about those, you can stick around. And like you can see, one of our premier institutes in India is the Indian Institute of Technology, IIT Madras. Now this is the number one technology university in India. So we have a program with them. We also have a program with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So just going to brief the students who have joined, because everybody is interested in SQL. So this entire session was about that. So SQL is the starting point. Most people start with databases, and then step by step they can choose and they can migrate to different career options. Someone can become a data engineer. So thank you so much, guys. That brings us to the end of today's session. If in case you are looking to know more about the programs that Intellipaat offers, you can reach out to us. You can also visit our website, intellipaat.com. All our programs are listed on the website. You can go through those as well. So you can go through those. We also keep publishing content related to the industry, the IT industry, what kind of requirements, what kind of opportunities are available, what kind of technologies are in demand. So you can go through those videos as well. Thank you so much again for joining. Wish you all the very best and see you in the next one. Thank you and bye bye.